wondering if maybe you had any thoughts on transphobia within the LGBTQ community, sort of why it exists and sort of what can be done to address it within our own communities.
You better work. You're getting unvarnished Laverne tonight. It is the 45th anniversary of Stonewall this year, and we are here celebrating WorldPride here in Toronto. It's when Stonewall back in the 60s, when Stonewall was being raided by the police, they would raid Stonewall and line up all of the patrons of Stonewall, and if you were not wearing at least 3 articles of clothing associated with the gender you were assigned at birth, you were arrested, because there were anti-cross-dressing laws on the books in New York and all around the country. And it's deep to me how many people don't know that. I said that at an event on Monday, and so many people had no idea about that history. So that Stonewall, in part, was about gender self-determination and gender freedom and protesting being policed in terms of our gender. And that part of our history as LGBT people has been very subjugated, very sort of suppressed. And so people like Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, Miss Major, were at Stonewall that night, and were part of. It's said that actually that Marsha P. Johnson actually threw the first punch, and it was her birthday, so she was not having it. So trans folks were at the forefront, and Stonewall was a hustler bar. It was a place where hustlers and trans folks and queens hung out, and so Sylvia Rivera was at the forefront of this movement, along with other trans and gender nonconforming people. And there's this brilliant video that Raina Gossett actually put on the internet a few years ago. In 1973, Sylvia Rivera had to fight her way onto stage at the Gay Liberation Rally that year. Basically, is it 4 years after a movement 1973. Yes, 1973. And this is 41 years ago. 4 years after, she basically was at the forefront, literally, on the battle at the
catalyst.
At the catalyst for this modern LGBT, what they called a gay liberation movement at the time. She was being told by organizers that she did not represent the community, that they did not want queens representing the community, that queens were anti-feminist, and she fought her way onto the stage that day, and she's talked about being arrested, beaten, raped, that she knows people who have been arrested, beaten, and raped, and that she warned us that our LGBT movement should not become a movement for white middle-class people. 41 years ago. 41 years, it's deep. I was watching that, I was like, she, and Raina Gossett, my dear friend Raina Gossett at Sylvia Rivera Law Project, she's an historian, she reminded me of the fact that initially the Gay Liberation March and movement was uptown in New York, that it was around, in Central Park. And then around 73, 74, they moved it downtown to where Christopher Street was, because all the gay bars were there, and they wanted the business after the parade. Right. So it became, and then that's when it switched from Gay Liberation to Pride. So that then it was tied up in commerce, right? The switch from gay liberation to pride, and so there's this whole capitalist thing going on there. So I think when I think about your question, I think about 45 years of history of trans people being pushed to the back of the bus, of people of color and working and street people being pushed to the back of the bus, and capitalism and white supremacy sort of taking over. So I think that when we look at or want to talk about ending transphobia within the LGBTQ community, I think it's important to ask ourselves, how do we end racism and patriarchy within the LGBTQ community, and classism in the LGBTQ community, because all those things are working together to disenfranchise and subjugate the issues of trans people. So yeah.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to end it. I just got the time, and I think the young lady was right. I think that's a great place for us to go home and think.
Love you back.
ladies and gentlemen, Laverne Cox.
Well, I'm going to stand up with you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, WorldPride. Thank you, Toronto. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Wilson.
Thank you to all of you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, TIFF.